there's a lot of people freaking out in the creative space around artificial intelligence taking people's jobs, ruining things. I mean, this one came out earlier in the year. Tyler Perry puts $800 million studio expansion on hold after seeing OpenAI's Sora. Jobs are going to be lost. Sure, there is an element of jobs that are going to be lost with the utilization of AI. But as a world community in the creative space, everyone needs to be very cautious. And I'm going to get into that for a couple reasons that are also the reason why I don't think it's going to be as severe. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be some hiccups. We're going to stub our toe around this. People are going to lose their jobs. But I want to talk about some kind of cautious optimism around this space. So sure, Tyler Perry, you don't want to put nearly $1 billion on the line. Totally get it. Now, how generative AI is changing work in a number of ways. It is taking the ability to input text and create just unworldly and just unbelievable imagery, like OpenAI Sora for sure. But there's also some positivity. Like, I do like this Klarna case study of how they've leveraged and improved their work output with AI, using it as a tool, not replacing people's jobs. It's able to help them create content a little faster, using it to augment their workspace and their processes. So there's some optimism around there. But here's the big thing around synthetic created imagery or data or anything. Model collapse. As people are leveraging ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Anthropic, whatever, and this content is going out there, we're starting to see these AI models reach out for what has been stuff that they created or other AI models created, this synthetic imagery, and then train itself on it, and then you get model collapse. It's not really making a copy of a copy. If you've ever done that, that's kind of the basic way I can kind of describe it in some sense, because everything is kind of a derivative historically of the data that it's trained on. So it's somewhat of a copy, but more of a derivative. But as you make a copy of a copy, it erodes. It starts looking very, very bad. And you can see what is known as model collapse. Now, this train loss should be a little bit smoother as training increases and your models get more intelligent, that the loss should be minimal, but you can see it's kind of all over the place when it's trained on synthetic data. A better example of this, and actually a better study, this comes out of Rice University. They have coined the phrase of what's called that self-consuming generative models go mad. That is model autophagy disorder, just consuming itself. And you start seeing little things here. If you're watching, you can start seeing what model collapse can kind of look like. It starts artifacting. It's not producing imagery that is necessarily as smooth or as beautiful as in generation 1 on the far left of this imagery. There are more in-your-face, better examples within the study. There's one about numbers. Where is it? Actually, you know what? If I scroll back up here, here's what synthetic data looks like when it's trained on itself. Pretty nightmarish. I don't know, this like dog tennis ball looking thing, high fidelity synthetic imagery. And then over here on the right, there's this monster. It's like it's got a mouth and an eye. And then you've got this weird kind of like painting, abstract. You just start seeing things that are unexpected because it's training on synthetic data. And then even as something as simple, because image generation can be somewhat complex and take a lot of high computational needs. But let's look at the MNIST data set, something that someone like myself worked on as far as like a project. And it's about using computer vision to identify number sets. So when it trains on itself, you can see just complete erosion. On the far left, if you're listening, you have written numbers from 0 through 9, and then all the way through the 20th generation, it just dots. It looks like, I don't know, Morse code or something. Even here, when they're using sampling bias, there's still drift. You start seeing the erosion of the number 4 and the number 5. It just causes a bunch of problems. So that's something that needs to, what the heck is this? I'm looking at this like imagery. You have like a hand in a mouth, and yeah. We don't need that. We don't need that popping up in a movie randomly when you're trying to watch a Disney movie and someone used Sora to create it. The stuff gets created, gets put out there, it trains on itself. No good. You need creatives creating unique, novel things that then these models can then, I guess, train on, which again is a whole nother problem. What data sets are they training on that are publicly available, don't have any copyright to them? And that kind of leads me to my next point of why it's going to be very difficult for Hollywood and any other content creative agency or company to leverage generative AI because of ownership. What are you owning? The rights in the United States around intellectual property, I mean, I was an IP lawyer, is to protect humans. Trademark protects consumers, copyright protects the owner, patents protect the inventor, but it's got to be human. Now, to what extent is leveraging a tool? Like if I input into OpenAI's Sora and I say create blah da da, some sort of plot, some sort of video. Did I do enough in entering it into Sora to have claim ownership? Because, you know, you could argue that leveraging something like Adobe Photoshop and its somewhat AI tools that can help you create nowadays could potentially erode your ability to have a copyright ownership. But for me, as we're looking in this space, this new frontier of intellectual property law around AI, I kind of liken it to like copyright infringement cases. When someone does something to the extent that their creative input in a work of art is why someone would look at that art. So it's more likely than not that the person who created the new work is original. Thereby, you don't necessarily claim infringement. It's a very tough thing to articulate. But I guess what I'm saying is that the person that is creating the art needs to do enough of their own input, their own hands-on creative input to have ownership within the AI space. I don't know how to articulate it more because IP law can be a little more complicated than that's why you pay the big bucks to the IP lawyers. But just simply creating through just generative AI models, you're not going to own it. Computers cannot own it, and that's who's actually creating in this sense. So what are these Hollywood companies going to be selling? Everything should be just typically public domain once you've created it and you put it out there. So they need actual human beings doing the creative works in order to make money. And that's going to be the second hurdle of why generative AI won't necessarily be this blanket takeover that many doomsday people think it is. So it, again, just to recap, law, ownership, how do they make money? And then people got to create unique works of art in order to have these models even be worth anything. So yeah, I think we got time.